Hi, how's it going? So I found what seems to be a sort of parallel in the Nordic, sagas or whatever, the Nordic religion and the Egyptian. It's a fascinating thing how some religions are called mythology, some religions are called, lore, and that they're exactly identical to every other, they have every component of all the other religions, like of the Egyptian, of the Mesopotamian. I mean, I guess mythology is, an old word for that, but it's just funny how people think it's something separate. There's like, oh, there's religion, and then there's mythology, and then there's lore, and then there's magic. No, these are literally just all different names, partly in different languages, for the exact same thing. Mythology is religion. Astrology is religion. Like, all religion is astrology. Even Christianity is astrology to a large extent, the archangels are like the planets, and anyway, so it seems that there's a parallel between Isis killing Re, the sun god, and the killing of Baldr, the sun god, in the Nordic tales. So let's see, let me find this one. So I'm reading this Egyptian Legends of the Egyptian Gods, Hieroglyphic Texts and Translations by E.A. Wallace Budge. And so it's like a very classic Egyptological text translation. Alright, so the legend of Re and Isis. The chapter of the divine or mighty God who created himself, who made the heavens and the earth and the breath of life and fire and the gods and men and beasts and cattle and reptiles and the fowl of the air and the fish, who is the king of men and gods, who existeth in one form, to whom periods of 120 years are as single years, whose names by reason of their multitude are unknowable, and for even the gods know them not. Behold, the goddess Isis lived in the form of a woman. So there's often in the text they refer to the god whose name is unknowable, and that means Re. But it's like most religion, it's a trick, like it's a metaphor, or I don't know. It's like it's fictional thing to say, like it's that his name is unknowable, because as it explains here, the basis of that is simply the fact that there's so many names for the sun in every culture, that therefore, and it differs so much culture to culture, therefore that's why they say his name is unknowable. It's not because his name is unknowable. So it's not, it's fictional. It's like, to understand how mythology works. Mythology, or religion, really, in the true sense, in the original sense of how religion worked, and even much of Christianity, you're not doing it correctly unless you're telling the truth through a lie. So Jesus explained that very succinctly about the parables and everything. Anyway, so that's like it. I mean, it's funny. Honestly, I think a lot of religion is a joke. Like, it's fucking hilarious. Like, if you understand it, which almost nobody does. But I mean, even if you don't understand it too much, it's pretty funny. But for the real priests and the ones who created this, they really understood the joke. So yeah, it's like saying he has an unknowable name. So based on that fiction of like his quote unquote has an unknowable name because he has so many names, they created this story wherein Isis wants to find out his real name, quote unquote. And no. So behold, Re entered heaven each day at the head of his mariners, establishing himself upon the double throne of the two horizons. Let's see. Oh yeah, so behold, the goddess Isis lived in the form of a woman who had the knowledge of words of power. Her heart turned away in disgust from the millions of men, and she chose for herself the millions of the gods. And so, like, according to modern ideas, there's probably never even been millions of men before, like, modern times or something, or I'm not really sure, but I mean, it seems clear in this that they believe there were millions of people already. I'm not sure what the modern orthodoxy is for the historic population, but you know, this is a very old story, and it seems that already they said there were millions of people, and they were aware of them, as opposed to this idea that people only knew like their own country and basically knew nothing outside of it. And she chose for her heart turned away in disgust from the millions of men, and she chose for herself the millions of the gods. So this is like when Venus, the morning star, like Venus rising, you know, departs from, like, it's first like she's kind of sitting on the horizon, and then she rises up into the sky. She's like, screw you people, I'm gonna hang out with the gods. But esteemed more highly the millions of the spirits. So the millions of the spirits, I'm not sure if that actually means the spirits of the dead or what exactly. I would have to know what word it was translated from, if it was like Ka or Ba. Like Ka can also mean stars. And it can mean like islands. Like a lot of stuff can be a Ka. Was it not possible to, or maybe I'm thinking of Ba as stars, so maybe, anyway. Was it not possible to become even as Re in heaven and upon earth, and to make herself mistress of the earth and a mighty goddess? Thus she meditated in her heart by the knowledge of the name of the holy God. Behold, Re entered heaven each day at the head of his mariners. So this is great because it literally explains to you that it's lying to you. I mean, quote, you know, like these are white lie. It's a white lie because it tells you, it's like, this is the lie and this is the story we're creating from this lie. And this is the basis of the lie. The basis of the lie is that he has so many names that it seems like he doesn't have a real name. And then based on that, there's this story that Isis, Venus, wants to, like, you know, take his name or find out his real name and make herself mighty like him, the ruler of the earth and everything in the heavens. Behold, Re entered heaven each day at the head of his mariners. So, you know, he like sails in on his solar bark with probably the other like planets of the solar system, like you know, often Seth and Horus and stuff like that, and Isis, establishing himself upon the double throne of the two horizons. So that's like a common motif in Mesopotamian and Egyptian art and it shows like these two hills, and with gods rising between them. And I think one of the hills is the hill of the sunset, and one is the hill of the sunrise. And sometimes they're depicted as being the space between the arms of the sky goddess Nut and the space between her legs. Her legs, the one between her legs being the sunrise hill, and the one between her arms being the sunset hill. It's talking about Re. Now the Divine One had become old, he dribbled at the mouth, and he let his emissions go forth from him upon the earth, and his spittle fell upon the ground. This Isis kneaded in her hand, and with some dust, and she fashioned it in the form of a sacred serpent, and made it to have the form of a dart, so that none might be able to escape alive from it. So this might be the creation of Apep, or also called Apophis or Apopis, and made it to have the form of a dart, so that none might be able to escape alive from it. And she left it lying upon the road whereon the great god traveled, according to his desire whereon the great god traveled according to his desire about the two lands. So the two lands probably means Afro-Eurasia and America. I think most Egyptologists interpret it as being the two, like Upper and Lower Egypt, but that's almost certainly not the case. I think it's either Afro-Eurasia and America, or, possibly it's the two Americas, North and South America, but I think it's the two hemispheres, the Eastern and Western Hemisphere, because that's where Apophis is. Then the holy god rose up in the tabernacle of the gods, in the great double house, life, strength, health. So the tabernacle of the gods is in America. It's like in the center of America, and if it's anywhere specific, it seems to be in Mexico, because that's on the maps of America, like the ancient underworld maps. That's where the text refers to Re's shrine, and then it's just due west of that, around the Gulf of California and around Baja, that Apep is labeled. So it makes sense if he's traveling from Afro-Eurasia to America, and then he's rising in his shrine in the center of America, then he might have to deal with this serpent. It doesn't call this serpent Apep, but everything seems to correspond with Apep. Then the holy god rose up in the tabernacle of the gods, in the great double house, life, strength, health, to him, among those who were in his train, and as he journeyed on his way according to his daily wont, the holy serpent shot its fang into him, and the living fire was departing from the god's own body, and the reptile destroyed the dweller among the cedars. So I guess the dweller among the cedars is Re. Which, might just be because, the cedars forests of Lebanon are east of Egypt, and so Re is seen as rising up out of the cedars, or it could be another basis. And the mighty God opened his mouth, and the cry of his majesty, life, strength, health to him, reached unto the heavens, and the company of the gods said, What is it? And his God said, What is the matter? And the God found no words wherewith to answer concerning himself. His jaws shook, his lips trembled, and the poison took possession of all his flesh, just as Hapi, i.e. the Nile, taketh possession of the land through which he floweth. So again, Hapi is, rendered as a deity. His boob, he has like big moobs, and his moob is like the curve up the Nile near at or near Nubia, and like around Aswan, I think. And so it just shows how it's not just that planets and stars were rendered as anthropomorphic deities, but also terrestrial, regions, including America, which was Amentet Neferet. And let's see, so Hapi the Nile, yada yada. Then the great God made firm his heart, and he cried out to those who were in his following, Come ye unto me, O ye who have come unto me into being from my members. So that's probably like the planets, the solar system. Ye gods who have proceeded from me, for I would make you to know what hath happened. I have been smitten by some deadly thing, of which my heart hath no knowledge, and which I have neither seen with my eyes nor made with my hand. And I have no knowledge at all who hath done this to me. I have never before felt any pain like unto this, and no pain can be worse than this is. I am a prince, the son of a prince, and the divine emanation which was produced from a god. I am a great one, the son of a great one, and my father hath determined for me my name. I have multitudes of names, and I have multitudes of forms, and my being existeth in every god. I have been invoked or proclaimed by Temu and Heru-Hekenu. My father and my mother uttered my name, and they hid it in my body at my birth, so that none of those who would use against me words of power might succeed in making their enchantments have dominion over me. I had come forth from my tabernacle to look upon that which I had made, and I was making my way through the two lands which I had made. So that's Afro-Eurasia and America. When a blow was aimed at me, but I know not of what kind. Behold, is it fire? Behold, is it water? My heart is full of burning fire. My limbs are shivering, and my members have darting pains in them. Let there be brought unto me my children, the gods, who possess words of magic, whose mouths are cunning in uttering them, and whose powers reach up to heaven. Then his children came unto him, and every god was there with his cry of lamentation. And Isis came with her words of magic, and the place of her mouth was filled with the breath of life, for the words which she putteth together destroy diseases, and her words make to live those whose throats are choked, i.e. the dead. And it says, the footnote says, the position of Isis as the great enchantress is well defined, and several instances of her magical powers are recorded. By the utterance of her words of power, she succeeded in raising her dead husband Osiris to life, and she enabled him by their means, yada yada. So then his cry came to her with words of and Isis came with her words of magic, and the place of her mouth was filled with the breath of life, for the words which she putteth together destroyed diseases, and her words make to live those whose throats are choked, i.e. the dead. And she said, What is this, O divine Father? What is it? Hath a serpent shot his venom into thee? Hath the thing which thou hast fashioned lifted up its head against thee? Verily it shall be overthrown by beneficent words of power, and I will make it to retreat in the sight of thy rays. The holy God opened his mouth, saying, I was going along the road and passing through the two lands of my country, for my heart wished to look upon what I had made. When I was, so of my country, that's probably a mistranslation, but who knows. To look upon what I had made, when I was bitten by a serpent which I did not see. Behold, is it fire? Behold, is it water? I am colder than water. I am hotter than fire. All my members sweat. I myself quake. Mine eye is unsteady. I cannot look at the heavens, and water forceth itself on my face, as in the time of inundation. See if I can even finish this on time to give the parallel. Jesus. Anyway, well, in the Nordic version of the death of the sun god, Isis seems to be Venus, and in the Nordic version, Frigg, who is Venus, was also involved. And so, concerning Hermod, the High One replied. So High One is the one who is the source of the supposed source of Snorri Sturluson's the diluting of the Gylfi, which I guess is a good name because a lot of this stuff deludes a lot of people, including me probably, but often me. High One replied, then Gangleri asks, are there any more remarkable stories about the Aesir? Those are the gods. Thor performed a very mighty deed on this journey. High One replied, I will tell you about something that seemed far more important to the Aesir. And it's interesting that I had just told a story about the Midgard serpent, who seems to potentially play the same role as Apep. But then this story doesn't mention Apep, but it says, it doesn't mention the Midgard serpent, but it says, the beginning of this story, I will tell you something that seemed far more important to the Aesir. The beginning of this story is that Baldr the Good had some terrible dreams that threatened his life. When he told the Aesir these dreams, they took counsel together, and it was decided to seek protection for Baldr from every kind of peril. Frigg exacted an oath from fire and water. So you notice, the previous story kept mentioning fire and water. An oath from fire and water, iron, and all kinds of metals, stones, earth, trees, ailments, beasts, birds, poison, and serpents, that they would not harm Baldr. And it's interesting that serpents is last there. So this is kind of similar to the other story talking about all the things that Ray has created. And when this had been done and put to the test, Baldr and the Aesir used to amuse themselves by making him stand up at their assemblies for some of them to throw darts at. So again, it's an interesting parallel that, the thing Isis created to kill Re was shaped as a dart. It was a snake shaped as a dart. And then here, all the gods are throwing darts at Baldr. Others to strike, and the rest to throw stones at. No matter what was done, he was never hurt, and everyone thought that a fine thing. When Loki, Laufey's son, saw that, however, he was annoyed that Baldr was not hurt, and he went disguised as a woman to Fensalir to visit Frigg. So this is kind of like suspicious. I think like sometimes the fact that he's dressed as a woman, like that, it might have originally been a story about Frigg, but then they had to make like Loki the bad guy of every story. So I don't know. So maybe that's why Loki turns into a woman and quote unquote talks to Frigg, because in the original it was a woman who was Frigg, i.e. Venus, who initiated the thing. But it's hard to know exactly. So Frigg asked this woman if she knew what the Aesir were doing at the assembly. She answered that they were all throwing things at Baldr, moreover that he was not being hurt. Frigg remarked, "Neither weapons nor trees will injure Baldr. I have taken an oath from them all." So again, like just as Isis is the mistress of oaths and of spells and whatever, so Frigg is in this tradition. So they're both Venus. Like words of power. Has everything sworn you an oath to spare Baldr? Frigg replied. Sorry. The woman asked, has everything sworn an oath to you to spare Baldr? Frigg replied, west of Valhalla grows a little bush called mistletoe. I did not exact an oath from it. I thought it too young. Thereupon the woman disappeared. So this is maybe like a Celtic, you know, like, I mean, a lot of Nordic stuff is based on Celtic stuff, but because the Celts were like the original people of Europe mostly. But a lot of Celtic stuff was based on trees and plants. So it may have just been a Celtic version of the Apep story where Apep is a mistletoe. But it's interesting that he's west of Valhalla, because if Valhalla is America, or maybe even more specifically Mexico, then Apep is labeled just west of there, near Baja California. So the mistletoe, she didn't exact the oath from there. I thought it too young. Thereupon the woman disappeared. Loki took hold of the mistletoe, pulled it up, and went to the assembly. Now Hod was standing on the outer edge of the circle of men because he was blind. Loki asked him, why aren't you throwing darts at Baldr? He replied, because I can't see where Baldr is, and another thing, I have no weapon. Then Loki said, you go and do as the others are doing and show Baldr honor like other men. I will show you where he is standing. Throw this twig at him. Hod then took the mistletoe and aimed at Baldr as directed by Loki. The dart went right through him and he fell dead to the ground. This was the greatest misfortune ever to befall gods and men. So again, he's killed by a dart. And again, there's an issue of not being able to see the dart. So in the original one, Ray says, I did not see this. I do not know what, killed me. And in this, even the guy throwing it doesn't see it. When Baldr had fallen, the Aesir were struck dumb, and not one of them could move a finger to lift him. Each looked at the other, and all were of one mind about the perpetrator of the deed. But no one could take vengeance. So then in the end, they try to bring him back to life. Hel, who's the goddess who is America, she's trying to send him back to Afro-Eurasia and bring him back to life. But it's a woman who who Snorri says suspects is really Loki, but might really be Frigg in my mind, is the one who actually refuses to mourn and weep for him, and therefore he remains deceased. So, again, because what other reason is there for Loki to keep becoming a woman in this, unless maybe it's based on a story that